Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a World War II espionage story that is honestly unlike any other. We're talking about the unbelievable, true story of how paper, light boxes, and just sheer, unadulterated genius literally saved the world. We're going behind closed doors into the high-stakes, highly classified world of British code breaking.
Let's kick things off with a fact that immediately pulls you right into this cloak and dagger world. The British government originally didn't even want to buy the Bletchley Park estate. I mean, it's true. The head of MI6 at the time, Admiral Sir Hugh Sinclair, saw the immense strategic value of the site. It was perfectly central, tucked away safely in Buckinghamshire, right next to major railways and crucial high-volume telecom lines. But the government? They flat out told them they didn't have the budget for it. So Sinclair took matters into his own hands and bought the 58-acre park using £6,000 of his own money. Just think about the absolute audacity of that. That one personal out-of-pocket purchase laid the groundwork for the entire Allied code-breaking effort.
So, who exactly moved into this estate once Sinclair secured it? Well, when General Alan Brooke visited in 1942, he actually wrote in his diary, "A wonderful set of professors and genii. I marvel at the work they succeed in doing." And you know, that perfectly captures the unlikely hero trope of our whole story here. You've got this quiet, kind of eccentric English country house, which by the way was a really strange mashup of Victorian Gothic and Tudor architecture that was suddenly filled with the most brilliant, unorthodox minds in the country. It wasn't full of decorated soldiers, right? It was full of academics, all brought together to fight a global war with their minds.
All right, Section 1, the code-breaking workforce. Let's look at the people who actually made the impossible happen.
Just to quantify the sheer scale of this effort for you, 8,995. By the peak of operations in January 1945, there were nearly 9,000 personnel working at Bletchley Park and its outstations. What started out as this small, scrappy little team in 1939 had just exploded into a massive, round-the-clock intelligence factory. The lights literally never went off. It was a grueling schedule of shift work, day and night, relentlessly grinding away at enemy communications.
And here is a massive, surprising statistic that corrects a really common historical misconception right out of the gate. 75%. 3/4 of these vital personnel were women. Many of them came from middle-class backgrounds, holding degrees in math, physics, and engineering. You see, as men were increasingly sent off to the front lines, it was these women who stepped up, performing the intense mind-bending calculations and coding. They operated the complex machinery, logged the intercepts, and were absolutely integral to the entire cryptanalytic process.
The recruitment strategies they used were just as fascinating. The British War Office wasn't just looking for traditional military minds. They needed lateral thinkers. We're talking mathematicians, physicists, linguists, chess champions, and famously, cryptic crossword solvers. Bletchley was actually whimsically dubbed the Golf, Cheese, and Chess Society. Get this. At one point, they literally organized a Daily Telegraph crossword competition. They invited the top contestants to London and discreetly approached them about, a particular type of work for the war effort. Their logic was pretty simple. If you could untangle a brutal cryptic crossword in under 12 minutes, you had exactly the kind of mind that could see patterns where everyone else just saw chaos.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Naval Enigma problem. Which really begs the question, doesn't it? How do you break an unbreakable code? The Enigma machine was this incredibly complex electromechanical cipher used by the Axis powers. Properly used, it should have been virtually invincible. We're talking about a machine with interchangeable rotors and a crazy complex plug board that scrambled letters into billions upon billions of potential daily settings. To put that into perspective, if you had 10 people testing one setting every single minute, it would take longer than the age of the universe to check them all. No way! So when you're facing that level of mathematical intimidation, where do you even begin your attack?
Well, the answer actually lies in human error and procedural flaws. The Kriegsmarine, the German Navy, had a really critical flaw in their protocol. They used what was called a Grundstellung. Basically, this meant that every single message on a particular day shared the exact same starting rotor position on the Enigma machine. Unlike the Army and Air Force, the Navy's indicators were all enciphered using this common starting point. In the cryptography world, this meant the messages were in depth with each other. Essentially, it means they were encrypted using the exact same scramble sequence, and that created a tiny but highly exploitable crack in the machine's armor.
Section 3, Turing's Banburisms breakthrough. Let's see how they completely blew that crack wide open.
To tackle this, Alan Turing created a brand new statistical concept.
He called it the ban, or the deciban. It was basically a measure of the weight of evidence in favor of a hypothesis. Since the team was desperately trying to identify the most likely right hand and middle wheels of the Enigma to save precious time on their decoding machines, Turing used sequential conditional probability. Okay, actually, to put it simply, he developed a system of racking up points. By scoring these points, they could figure out the mathematical odds that two intercepted messages were actually overlapping and using the same exact settings. Think about the math like this. If you take a random sequence of letters, the chance of a single letter repeating is 1 in 26, so about 3.8%. But because of the underlying structure of the German language and their specific military phrasing, if two enciphered messages were perfectly aligned, meaning they were encrypted with the exact same machine settings at that exact point, the repeat rate jumped to 1 in 17, or 5.9%. By sliding two messages against each other and looking for that giveaway repeat pattern, the cryptanalysts could conclusively prove when the messages were aligned in depth.
What's really wild is how physical this mathematical process actually was. They didn't have modern computers to do this alignment for them. Instead, they used a process that involved massive sheets of paper printed in the nearby town of Banbury, which is where the quirky name Banburismus comes from. So, step 1. They punched the intercepted messages onto these thin cards, which could be up to several meters wide. Step 2. They laid two of these cards on top of each other over a light box. Step 3. Wherever the light shone completely through a hole, it meant there was a repeating letter. They literally just had to count the lights. And finally, step 4, they tabulated the scores to calculate the odds of the rotor settings. In a sub-process they playfully called Scritchmas, they built chains of letters from these illuminated repeats that eventually forced the conclusion of which specific rotor was being used inside the Enigma machine.
Let's zoom out a bit for Section 4, the impact of intelligence.
So, once a message was intercepted, it went on this incredibly rapid journey across the estate. Banburism and the actual statistical deciphering of the Naval Enigma happened in Hut 8, famously run by Alan Turing and later Hugh Alexander. Once cracked, the raw German text was rushed right over to Hut 4, where translators quickly turned it into English. From there, verbatim translations were sent straight to the Naval Intelligence Division of the Admiralty's Operational Intelligence Center. This hyper-rapid pipeline turned complex probability calculations into actionable, on-the-ground intelligence, redirecting entire convoys and saving real ships from submarine attacks in the freezing waters of the Atlantic.
But beyond the immediate, critical war effort, we really have to remember the lasting legacy of this place. Bletchley's work laid the absolute foundation for modern electronic computing. The desperate need to automate these massive, time-consuming statistical checks, like Banburismus and later attacks on the Lorenz cipher, directly led to the development of Colossus. Colossus was the world's first programmable digital electronic computer. Just an absolute behemoth of engineering that could process data at a speed humans simply couldn't match. So this manual, painstaking process of punching paper and counting lights literally gave birth to an entirely new digital age.
Which brings us to our final point, and a question I want to leave you to ponder. If paper, light, and statistics were enough to crack World War II's hardest, supposedly unbreakable code, what does that mean for our digital privacy today? The foundational probability methods developed by Turing and his team heavily parallel the very algorithms that govern our modern digital lives right now. It kind of shows us that with enough data and the right statistical approach, very few secrets are truly safe. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this explainer. I hope it gave you a brilliant new perspective on history. Until next time, keep exploring.